Hey guys, how's it going? On today's video, we are continuing with the rack swap guide. We are going to go over the Z3 rack. Again, 325 IS. It's an I motor, revs a little more than the E model. Stock motor, brand new bushings, brand new suspension, and we are on a 195 tire, so relatively small. Now, the video might look the same as the last video, but I promise I won't use the same intro and the same spiel every time. The only thing that'll probably keep the same is the disclaimer and the product overview of the... Start with this big disclaimer that a majority of this is opinionated, and the only factual part of it will be the lock-to-lock ratio. The rest of it is fully opinionated and is me giving an opinion on the rack, being able to drive them all back to back to back to back. Everyone is going to feel out these racks differently, and everyone's car setup is going to affect how the racks feel. Because I'm driving them back to back to back on the same setup, I feel like I can give a better representation of the racks for everyone so that you have an idea what you're buying or how the rack feels before you buy it. Everyone focuses on the lock-to-lock ratios, but forgets that, you know, each rack does feel different and does drive differently. You should be focused on how you want your car to drive, and if that rack fits in your driving style, then that's the way to do it. But I would not be choosing a rack like most forums say just because of the lock-to-lock ratio, because you might not like how that rack feels when you're actually driving it, whether in the canyons, on the freeway, or on the track. This is the LPSR Lucas Power Steering Racks E30 conversion linkage for your E30 rack, your E36 rack, your Z3 rack, and your E46 rack swap. This is their non-airbag version, so it's fine spline and fine spline. They also have a airbag version, which is fine spline and coarse spline. If you're not sure if you have a fine spline or coarse spline E30 steering column, here are the differences right here. So you can see this is a non-airbag column, which is fine spline. This is an airbag column. It's coarse spline. You will need to chop this extra knob off right here for the linkage to fit properly for your airbag car. Just again, chop that off. Non-airbag, super easy. You can also do if you want to replace your airbag column with your non-airbag column, you can. It is plug and play, bolt in. There's no modification needed. All you need to do is remove your airbag column and install a non-airbag column. And also E36 linkage and E46 linkage. Everything is now available, rageitparts.com. We also have a ton of racks in stock, E30, E36 M3, so your 95 and your 96 plus racks. We have E46 yellow and purple, Z3 and Z4 racks. These are all OEM rebuilt racks by J&J Axle Supply. No aftermarket racks here. So you can go ahead and check them out, rageitparts.com. Now back to the video. So, that being said, let's get into it. Z3 power steering rack with power steering. The shortest out of all the racks. Off the bat, it's already heavier than the E36 rack, but with power steering, it is a nice heavy. This rack is super great on the canyons and track because of how easy it is, how it's the least amount of input to turn, just because it's so twitchy, as everyone likes to say. There is a lot less input you have to do to turn it to point where the wheels to go. Unfortunately, that's going to be going the whole time we go about. I'll have to move that the next time. But you don't need to move the wheel a lot for it to go where you want it to go. It still is heavier than the 96 96 plus rack, feeling wise. But the feeling, unlike the 95, the feeling goes all the way through. So it's not like the 95 that has that sweet spot in the center. It's just, you know, very little movement on the wheel translate to a lot. So if you're going fast on the highway, you know, you're going the speed limit, or if you're in Mexico, you're going a little over the speed limit. A little bit is going to be a lot of movement on the freeway. In the canyons, it's good because it's not a lot of input. But the faster you go, the twitchier the rack gets. So at these lower speeds, it's very nice and smooth. We're going to get stuck behind the UPS truck. He's jamming though. But there's not it's a good overall rack. You know, if you're doing a lot of canyon driving, then it's a great rack for you. If you're doing a lot of track driving, it's a great rack for you. If you like a twitchy rack, it's a good rack for you. But if you want something mellow, that you don't have to think about, that you can move the wheel a little bit and not worry about the wheels just pointing in either direction, then this might not be the rack for you. Z3 rack, no power steering. It is heavy. It is, I can't believe I had this in my older car. I can't believe I dailied with it with no power steering. Yeah, I mean, this is, until you start going, once you start going, it's okay. It's still super heavy. It's a super responsive rack. You know, the littlest bit of input is going to point the wheels. So once you get going, sure, the no power steering like isn't, you know, it's very doable and it feels, to me, really good. But not for a daily, just trying to make U-turns or get out of a parking spot. I mean, it is a lot to move, but it is a hefty rack. It is super heavy, a lot heavier than the rest of the racks. But you can see how twitchy it is, just with the slightest bit of movement. If you want a super heavy rack, this is the one to go with. And if you don't mind the twitchiness at high speeds, you know, even with power steering at high speeds, it's super twitchy. And it you know, with no power steering, it's going to be even, you know, it's going to dart way more. With just the slightest hit, you're going to hit a bump or something, it'll tweak the wheel, you know, just right from you. There's no extra play in it or anything. It's heavy. It's really heavy. A lot more bearable with power steering. Final conclusions on the Z3 rack. It is a fantastic, direct, fast, you know, with the, it's 2.7, 2.8. It's closer to a 2.8 ratio rack. Everyone says 2.7. And it's definitely the rack that everyone points to on the forums. Oh, this is the best one because it's the lowest ratio. It's not true. Everyone is going to have their own opinion on how this rack drives, and whether or not you like how twitchy it is, how heavy it is subjective. I think I'd classify the Z3 rack as a canyon track rack and not as much as a daily driver rack. I still think the 96 Plus is that perfect sweet spot of you get that upgrade from the stock E30 rack, and it's still light and easy to drive. If you want something aggressive, you go with the Z3 rack. And in the next video, we're going to be going over the E46 yellow and purple tag racks, so stay tuned for that. Thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. If you have any questions, put them down in the comments below and I will reply. If you're looking to upgrade your steering rack, don't forget to check out rageitparts.com, or you can hit me up on Instagram at @themassdriver or at rageitparts. And if you're looking to upgrade your rack, don't forget to check out some of those LPSR steering rack linkages for your E30, E36, and E46 chassis. Thank you guys for watching. Have a great day. See you tomorrow.